The story of Sheldon Cooper has always been one of intellect, eccentricity, and brilliance. But as time moves forward and the final chapters of his young life unfold, we begin to see the side of Sheldon that was often hidden beneath layers of academic pride and scientific obsession: his emotional vulnerability. In this chapter of young Sheldon, we step into a season of change, where the weight of growing up starts to eclipse the excitement of knowledge, and the boy genius is forced to confront the one thing he never could fully calculate: loss. It all begins in the quiet town of Medford, Texas. The Cooper household, once filled with the vibrant chaos of a large Southern family, feels different now. Missy is growing more independent, George Jr. is distracted with his new responsibilities, and Mary struggles silently to hold the family together. Sheldon, meanwhile, is deep in thought, not about string theory or quantum mechanics, but about the fragility of time. Ever since the passing of George Sr., the heart of the family has changed. The pain of that loss lingers like static in the background, especially for Sheldon, who is only now beginning to understand the emotional depth of what it means to lose a father. For years, Sheldon has relied on logic to navigate life. But now, his equations fail to explain the hollow feeling that creeps in during dinner, or the silence that follows a joke that George Sr. would have laughed at. He's angry at the world for taking away the one man who believed in him unconditionally, even when Sheldon couldn't see the value in himself. In one particularly heartbreaking scene, Sheldon sits alone in the garage, staring at a notebook that belonged to his father. It's not filled with scientific formulas or deep philosophical musings, just random sketches, football plays, and little reminders written in messy handwriting. But to Sheldon, it's a treasure. Each page holds the imprint of a man he now misses more than he ever thought possible. Mima notices a shift in Sheldon's behavior. He's quieter, more reflective. She tries to reach out, offering her unique blend of sass and tenderness, but Sheldon resists. He tells her he's fine, but his eyes say otherwise. One night, she finds him curled up in the backyard telescope dome, a place he once used to marvel at galaxies, now used to escape the gravity of his emotions. Meanwhile, Mary struggles with her own guilt. She feels like she has to be strong for everyone, for Missy, for Georgie, for Sheldon. But in doing so, she's locked away her grief. She overhears Sheldon one evening speaking to himself, trying to rationalize death. If the universe is infinite, then consciousness should be infinite too, he whispers. So where is Dad now? That line breaks Mary. She realizes her son, as brilliant as he is still just a boy, a scared, heartbroken boy trying to use science to patch the cracks in his soul. She enters his room that night and, without a word, pulls him into a hug. For the first time in what feels like forever, Sheldon lets go. He doesn't fight the emotion. He doesn't rationalize it. He just cries. And in that moment, mother and son grieve together, not with words but with presence. Over the next few weeks, Sheldon starts keeping a journal. Not for scientific ideas, but for feelings. He writes about his father, about the emptiness he feels, about the guilt of not having said, "I love you" more often. He writes about missing his laugh, the smell of his aftershave, and even the sound of his boots on the hardwood floor. These aren't notes he plans to publish or analyze. They're just memories, preserved the only way he knows how. At school, Dr. Sturgis notices a dip in Sheldon's participation. When he gently probes, Sheldon admits he's been recalculating his belief systems. It's the most human answer Dr. Sturgis has ever heard from his protege. He offers to be there, not as a mentor, but as someone who's experienced loss too. They begin meeting weekly, not to discuss physics, but to simply walk and talk. Sheldon learns that the mind and the heart don't always operate on the same frequency, and that's okay. One of the most emotional turning points comes when Sheldon stumbles upon an old VHS tape in Mima's attic, footage of George Sr. coaching a local football game. The camera shakes, the audio is fuzzy, but Sheldon is transfixed. He watches his father cheer, shout, and laugh. He rewinds it, plays it again. That night he doesn't go to bed. He stays up watching the tape on repeat, memorizing every facial expression, every gesture. It's his way of keeping a part of his dad alive. The episode ends with Sheldon walking to his father's grave alone. He's carrying a small white envelope. Inside is a letter, a final message from son to father. He kneels down, places the envelope beside the headstone, and speaks softly. I'm going to be okay, Dad. I don't know how yet, but I will. And I'll make you proud. Fade to black. Weeks have passed since Sheldon visited his father's grave and left behind the letter, a quiet promise sealed in silence and memory. Though the pain hasn't vanished, something inside him has shifted. He's not healed, not yet, but the sharpness of the sorrow has softened, replaced by a tender ache that no longer paralyzes him. Back at home, the Cooper household starts to feel subtly different. Mary begins to speak more openly about George Sr., telling stories at dinner, laughing through tears. Missy, once withdrawn, starts joining in, remembering her dad's bad jokes and how he used to sneak her extra dessert when Mary wasn't looking. Even Georgie shows up more, helping with chores and stepping up in ways no one expected. It's as if grief, once so isolating, has become the very thing holding them together. But Sheldon's journey is far from over. One afternoon, while organizing old science fair projects in the garage, he finds a dusty shoebox labeled "Sheldon, do not touch," in George Sr.'s handwriting. Inside, he finds trinkets from his childhood. A broken calculator, a drawing of the solar system he made at age 5, and a tiny cowboy hat from a Halloween costume. But tucked at the bottom is something else, a handwritten letter from his father addressed to Sheldon, for when you're older. His hands tremble as he opens it. The letter is clumsy, heartfelt, and filled with the kind of raw honesty that Sheldon isn't used to. George Sr. writes about how proud he is of Sheldon, how he doesn't always understand him, but he never doubted that Sheldon was destined for something great. He ends the letter with a line that breaks Sheldon. Even when I'm not around, I'll be rooting for you from the stars. That night, Sheldon doesn't sleep. Instead, he writes. He fills page after page with letters, not just to his dad, but to his future self, to his mom, to Missy, to Georgie, even to Professor Proton. He writes about pain, hope, confusion, and the surprising peace he feels when he finally stops fighting what he can't control. These letters become the foundation for a new kind of thinking. Sheldon begins to realize that the world isn't always logical. People aren't equations. Follow Newton's laws. And maybe that's okay. Maybe brilliance isn't just about understanding black holes or predicting electron behavior. Maybe it's also about surviving loss, loving people who confuse you, and finding beauty in the chaos. One especially emotional moment comes during a school presentation. Sheldon is assigned to give a speech about someone who influenced his life. Everyone expects him to choose Einstein or Feynman or Newton. But Sheldon surprises everyone. He walks up to the podium, adjusts the mic, and begins with just one line. The person who taught me the most about the universe never went to college. He was my dad. The room is silent. For the next 5 minutes, Sheldon speaks not with technical brilliance, but with emotional clarity. He talks about George Sr.'s values, his patience, his humor, and his unwavering belief in Sheldon, even when Sheldon was too focused on academia to see it. He ends the speech by saying, "My father didn't teach me science. He taught me how to be human. And that's the most complicated subject of all." The crowd erupts in applause. Dr. Sturgis is visibly emotional. Mary can't hold back tears. Mima, watching through the window, clutches her necklace and smiles. After the speech, a classmate approaches Sheldon and says, "I didn't know you could feel like that." Sheldon replies, "Neither did I. But I think I'm learning." Meanwhile, Missy and Sheldon begin bonding in ways they never had before. They sit outside on the porch, sharing sodas, talking about the future. Sheldon even opens up about his fears. Not of death or the universe, but of forgetting his father. Missy, wise beyond her years, simply says, "You won't forget him. You're too much like him." That simple sentence stays with Sheldon for days. One afternoon he goes back to his telescope dome, the place where he used to run away from emotion. This time he brings his journal. As he looks up at the stars, he doesn't search for planets or constellations. Instead, he speaks quietly into the night air. "Hi, Dad. I hope you're watching." A shooting star streaks across the sky. He smiles. Over time, Sheldon begins building something in the garage. Not a machine or a science experiment, but a memory wall. It's filled with pictures, quotes, funny things George Sr. used to say, and even old receipts from fishing trips they took together. It becomes a sacred space, not for mourning, but for remembering. One day, while standing there with Mary, Sheldon says something that stops her in her tracks. I used to think grief was a weakness, but now I think it's proof that love was real. Mary hugs him tighter than she ever has before. As the school year wraps up, Sheldon receives a special invitation to attend a summer science program in California. It's a big step, one that takes him away from his family, from the comfort of home, and from the memories he's just begun to make peace with. He's hesitant. He's scared. But Mary encourages him. Your dad would have wanted you to go, she says. Sheldon looks at the stars that night and whispers, help me be brave. The final scene of the story is powerful yet simple. Sheldon boards the bus for California. As it pulls away, he looks out the window. In his lap is a small notebook, the one he used to journal his feelings. He opens it to the first page and writes, "This is not just the story of a genius. This is the story of a boy who lost his father, learned how to feel, and chose to keep going." Fade to black. The screen lingers on the words, "In memory of George Cooper Sr., the man behind the genius."